Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show, the world where I cock up the intro. And Clayton and I are looking forward to a North London Derby Carabao Cup final later in the season. Actually, no, I'm quivering at the prospect of it. My name's James.
And my name is Clayton. How are we?
I'm all right, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, good, good. Had a nice trip to Preston last night. I thought I was feeling okay, but the words you used when I jumped on was, "You had any sleep? You don't look good."
We'll be talking a little bit of the Carabao Cup roundup from last night. We are going to mention the words Ballon d'Or for the trendy kids that are out there. We're gonna have a look at Clayton's possible wild card for game week 10. Yeah, for those on the audio, he just kind of put his bottom lip above his top lip and was like, I'm in trouble here. Not sure, quite sure why I've done this. We'll see soon. I'm going to give you some ideas of some changes, maybe, Clates. We're going to do Euro focus on a very big side this week, obviously, in Bayer Leverkusen have thrilled the majority over the last 12 months or so. And on this day was a Halloween fright for one particular team in a local derby in 2010. Clates, tell us first, how was Preston?
Yeah, it was really nice. It was a new ground for me, so I think that takes me to 34 of the 92 now, so slowly creeping it up. And yeah, there's just something about those kind of midweek games where you're traveling across the country. You've got a huge allocation going. I think there was 5,600 Arsenal fans. So it was a long trip. We drove up. Obviously, I live in North London, so set off about one, got there. Like my mate missed the bloody exit for the M6, so we ended up getting there around 7. So yeah, it was a long old journey, and that was just for one stop. But it was nice, like the whole journey, you're just kind of chatting Arsenal and stuff with people that you don't really speak to every day. So yeah, it was a great journey up. Then atmosphere was great. It was a night. I really like the teams Arteta's been putting out in the Carabao Cup, where it's like a mixture of the youth players and the fringe players that need minutes, as well as like one or two of the senior guys. So yeah, all in all, good trip. Got back around 3:30 in the morning, and yeah, woke up, went and got a coffee. But yeah, all in all, I think the perfect Carabao Cup evening, to be honest. New ground ticked off, atmosphere was great, got minutes in the legs for most of the people that needed them. Ethan Waneri, youngster, really impressing again. Yeah, had a great time.
Standard. I had a good time too. Spurs won.
They did.
Beat the mighty Manchester City, who I think saw the team and was like, hmm, that's a little bit stronger than I thought it might be, Pep. But actually, look, he's done things like he's taken Haaland to the game, left him on the bench, never brought him on. And I think that fear probably came about because of other issues that City had injury wise during the course of the game, which we'll come back onto. Started pretty well, a little bit more counter attacking than would normally be. That's because of the opponent, despite whatever personnel was on the pitch, strong. They picked a strong back four, for example, in terms of their build up play, their philosophy, no matter who plays, like you can see it in them. I guess the only thing was like when we were, say, hanging on in the last 20 minutes, just constantly, I'm thinking, yeah, you can cross the ball. 'Cause got like nothing aerially without Haaland on the pitch. You'd be like, yep, we'll deal with the crosses. And weirdly, because Van der Ven and Romero had both gone off, with Davis and Dragishin, like the more basic the defending has to be, the better, basically. So it was quite suitable for those two players as well. Rotate a little bit. Timo scored, potential Ballon d'Or winner, obviously, if he'd done it a couple of weeks earlier. He did all right, actually. The less time he has to think about something, the better it is for him. It's like overthink and he just something happens to him. That we just got to walk onto it and someone's about to challenge him. You've got no choice but to just hit the thing. Scored. He played all right. Started really well. City, I don't think it had a shot in the first half hour or so. Not that we
Wow.
were like massively dominant, but we really restricted them. When Matthias Nunes scored, you felt like that was coming. But then actually, despite them kind of dominating, I guess in the second half, the best chances, bar one from a corner, basically still fell to us. Vardy put Richarlison through one on one with a throw in. I ain't seen that happen for years.
I've not seen the highlights of it, to be honest.
So they weren't at their best, and they obviously had a few kids come on and stuff, including one player. Just sounds like if you were googling for like porn of Marge Simpson. I'm not going to say his name because everybody's done the joke to death already.
I heard it on the radio on the way home. I went, who?
Yeah, Simpson, someone, yeah, Poozy. You just sound like you say if you don't say it properly, you sound like you're just putting it on, don't you? Um, Rico, I wanted to point out something about Rico Lewis actually. which I think is quite interesting. Like, I love him as a player. His game intelligence for his age is a joke in terms of knowing when to go in and when not to and stuff like that. But but Werner give him trouble, and I just think like if Werner's going to give you trouble,
What sort of
anyone
trouble did
is.
he give him? Like
I just feel
1v1s
I
or?
feel like as good as he is as a player, anybody 1v1 with him will fancy themselves. Anyone with a little pace or even a little bit of physicality would just fancy themselves. And I think Werner looked at him early on and went, I can have you. And he's probably the lowest confidence player in the league.
I guess that's
Um,
the trade-off with City, isn't it? Like where
it
they
is a
try to
little bit.
dominate possession, they back themselves to not be in a situation where he's isolated 1v1 many times in a game.
They were also better when Kovacic came on in the second half. Gundogan played the sixth position
Okay.
in the first half. Not good, if
Not
I'm
good, no.
honest. No, on the ball, what you'd expect, tidy and stuff. But in terms of like manipulating him off the ball where we could get Kulusevski into dangerous areas, yeah, not great. I'd worry for them if they played like decent sides away from home with him as the pivot.
I'm just looking at
It
the
was better than
lineup
Kovacic.
and obviously I didn't see the game, not seen any highlights. Looks like McAtee and O'Reilly were the other midfielders. Do you think that was an effect? Maybe Gundogan had too much to do on his own?
O'Reilly had good moments and experienced moments. So they got Rico and Nico now. I don't know what's coming next. McAtee we know about, and he's obviously quite experienced at the level, played at Sheffield United all last season, etc. Tidy player, but you don't quite feel like the end product will be there with him. I think it's fair to say. And it felt a bit toothless at the top end last night, which is understandable. No Haaland, no De Bruyne.
You
Took
played up top,
took
Foden.
yeah, basically. So I mean, Foden and McAtee kind of both played as tens rather than one of them was like an automatic nine. Yeah, it felt like and to that extent, I guess with Pep not using Haaland, I guess he was largely true to his word. But it's interesting that they not if they didn't have so many other issues, would they have brought him on?
Well, they
I
might
don't
have got
know.
it to a point where they had no choice.
It
You
felt
mentioned,
like it felt like we rotated to the right level as well, but also picked up our own problems. In fact, we might as well just do that the injury stuff now, right?
yeah,
Because
go for it. There's a
I
big
mean,
list of people, isn't there?
so Manuel Kanji picked up a calf injury before the game and was replaced by Ruben Diaz.
As in, like in the warm-up.
I think so, yeah.
All right.
Um, Savinio was stretchered off. He was really good, by the way. It was a proper shame, actually. He was the one who was like, uh-oh. The comparisons with Mahrez are fairly obvious, but I also felt watching him last night because other key players weren't about. He stepped up and was taking the responsibility. Um, Hopefully that's not too bad for him because that's a real 1v1 dribbler. Matthias Nunes played well on the left, actually. And he might be reinvented in that position for a little bit. He's dirt cheap in FPL, 4.9. I retweeted something Johnny Pringle tweeted last night. It was like, he's got to keep playing at the moment.
Oh, really?
Well, basically, yeah, because Savinho's now out.
I think I saw Grealish is out.
Doku's out. Grealish and De Bruyne were not expecting back till after the international break. They're light, mate. It may give people their Highland excuse with the lack of creativity that's possibly behind it at the moment. Certainly means Phil Foden play. I think
Yeah,
that's why he took Foden off. So I'm gonna need
possibly.
you. Gonna need you Saturday.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Mickey Van der Ven went off early for us. Hamstring problem. It wasn't like when he did it against Chelsea where he was sprinting back. It wasn't like that. It was he just turned around. He was sitting on the floor and you could see he was just feeling it. Okay, great. The problem with him is that's like third or fourth time now. There's been a little bit of a hamstring issue, and I guess he's so fast that he's susceptible to it. But it didn't come from, I don't think, like a real sprint action.
So
So
maybe that's the knock-on effect of having had it before. It's slightly weaker
it
than
was
it
one of them
used
you're
to be.
kind of hoping it's Carabao Cup and he's felt it and he's gone to like take me off. But
It's a
supposedly he was
precaution.
walking down the tunnel crying. So
Oh, damn.
Romero also went off early in the second half, but we think that's just fatigue and we think he's okay. Um, who else? Eze went off with a hamstring issue in the first half of Palace's victory at Villa. Adam Wharton, who I said on Monday, please get him an operation, went off early as well in this one. Oh, another one from City, Josko Vardio was getting treatment at the end of the game. So he went down right near the end in kind of a heavy collision right by the touchline. He was getting treatment at full time. Kadioglu went off for Brighton. Isak, there's a little question mark, went off for Newcastle. Have I missed anyone here, Clates?
I'm trying to find a list. You've covered all the ones on the list I've found.
I mean, yeah, quite a fan.
That's
A number of them, obviously, from that Tottenham City game last night as well. I take it. I was going to say you didn't pick up any issues, but did you see Arteta's quote
which
about
one?
Ben White?
No, I haven't. Oh,
So
I think I have actually.
he
Yeah.
said something about someone and someone. He said, "Oh, we've lost Gabby and Ben."
Yeah, I don't know. That's one where I'd like to watch the video to understand if it was like lost in translation or something. Because Ben White's obviously come back from injury and played quite a few minutes. So I
There's
wonder if
good
they were
there's
just
good and bad
taking.
news in terms of Arsenal players for this week. The bad news is Arteta won't tell you nothing, and you know that. So there's no point getting angry or upset about it. The good news is it's the 12:30 kickoff, so
There'll probably be leaks, yeah,
there probably
and
will
like
be something.
someone at a hotel checking who's there and this and that.
But just think the fact it's Arsenal in the 12:30, they'll likely be in the stadium before the FPL deadline. You would
Yes,
think probably. So someone's going to spot them walking in the ground or something. Oh, Gabriel's not got
yeah,
off
it's a
the
good
coach
point.
or whatever. Arsenal have done that before. I remember they did that with Saka, didn't they? But it was a home game
Yeah, it was a
where
home
Saka
game.
got off the coach with the team, didn't he, for a home game, and he wasn't available a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect that in a away game though. So yeah, injury issues not looking great. In terms of the draw, it's opened up for a potentially mouth-watering semi-final list, I guess,
big
because
time.
you will be favourites against Crystal Palace. Liverpool will obviously be favourites at Southampton. Newcastle will be favourites at home to Brentford, but Brentford are dangerous opponents. Well, saying Palace have gone really strong in the competition so far, Clates. And obviously Tottenham against Manchester United, I guess, is the headline game. But arguably, whichever one wins that might then be the outsiders from the semi-final stage, possibly. There is a little bit of an FPL impact that we said we'd discuss if Chelsea won. They didn't. So anybody who did have concern about a possible Chelsea blank game week in late December because the quarterfinals clash with the final Conference League fixtures, that's no longer a concern. What I can tell you is the lineup so far does not bode well for good double game week projections for use of the triple captaincy chip later in the season.
Which is
Because
why I used it in game week 2.
well done. I mean, listen, it's not it could still work out very nice from the FA Cup games and stuff like that, and it's no guarantee of obviously the big clubs or favourites winning the Carabao Cup ties. But you would be projecting now an Arsenal Liverpool final.
Okay, is that based on like bookies odds and
Yeah, of
stuff like that?
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite right. Like if you two win your quarters and avoid each other in the semis, that will be the projected final, right? You're due to play Chelsea in 29,
Hmm.
which is the same as the Carabao Cup final, and Villa and Liverpool due to play Villa. So
Right.
those are the postponed fixtures then going to double. So like,
It's not
how great does
amazing.
that
No,
look?
it's
Yeah, exactly.
top six essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Want to talk Ballon d'Or?
Go on then. First question.
No, I
Why?
don't. No, no.
No, but that's my first question. Why were you so opposed or upset about discussing it? Why does it wind you up?
Just it's children, and like
What
people
do you mean?
getting really annoyed about it. It's the cool kids. Where's my FIFA card kind of stuff, and getting really annoyed about this. Oh my God, I can't believe a holding midfield player won it rather than a guy who got less goal involvements than Jean-Philippe Mateta last season. Like that's the one that keeps going round, isn't it? Like,
I hadn't seen that to be honest, so
yeah.
that's made me laugh.
So I mean, like I eulogized literally on this show last week about Vinicius's performance against Dortmund, like unstoppable. Then Barcelona obviously did stop him at the weekend and won very handsomely in the Bernabeu 4-0. So I think it's great for the game that someone like Rodri wins it. I also think we've become so used to the Messi Ronaldo era that it's like it's got to be the best individual offensively. Rodri's kind of the first defensive player, if you will, to win it since Fabio Cannavaro in 2006. And I guess he probably would have been in competition maybe to like Ronaldinho at the time. Obviously, he led the Italy team that won the World Cup in 2006. Rodri, I think he's unquestionably, no one questions he's the best player in that position in the world.
No, no
No
one.
one. I don't see anybody doing it at any point. I'm absolutely fine with him winning it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure Rio Ferdinand's not. I'm sure there's lots of other people around Madrid are not. I think if generally the people from Madrid have decided not to go because he's not won it, I think it's just such a bad look.
Yeah, I think that's a bit odd. Like, I know Pep did an interview where he was like, "Oh, if they want to go, let them go. If they don't, let them not. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
fine,
I
but you be
agree.
consistent about it. So like next year, don't if one of your players is going to win it next year, do the video from home and stuff like that. Thanks, I'm honored to win the
Yeah, I
award, and
agree with you. I don't think it's a good look. It's just it's a lack of professionalism and respect, I guess.
yeah. So it's also just some of them will play with Rodri at national level as well. Am I missing that?
Like Carvajal.
Will you have people? I mean, Carvalho's obviously injured at the moment.
Yeah.
Must be people in that Real Madrid squad who play with Rodri. Probably pretty happy for Rodri.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think the same. Like the Ballon d'Or, it's something that I don't know. Maybe when I was growing up, I was like, oh yeah, like is it going to be Messi or Ronaldo? But since they've not been the two going for it, I'm like less interested in it. But
It doesn't feel as prestigious as it did, I don't think. Maybe it's an influence of those two players, but I just feel like it's become more about like glitz and things like a couple of years ago, people talking about Jorginho winning it because Chelsea won the Champions League and Italy won the Euros. Like, is this where we're at? Like Jorginho had a good season, Ballon d'Or winner, no. Like, is this where we're at? Also, I think Lewandowski should have got it a few years ago, and they had the year where they decided not to give the award.
I want,
What?
do you know how the how
Like,
is
why
the
not?
voting actually done? Do you know? I know it's a voting system and it's
Yeah,
based on
isn't it?
journalists and this and that, but
Yeah, and captains, I think captains
okay.
and managers from national associations, I think.
Because I did see there was a I forgot his name, but a Brazilian journalist like saying, oh, he was trying to put it out there that maybe people were voting against Vinicius because of him tackling racism and this and that. Like some of the kind
You
of
would hope not.
oh no, yeah, I don't personally think so, but just again, why can't they just like congratulate the guy that won it? It's the first time in 16 years it's not been Messi or Ronaldo.
Who won it last year?
Oh, no, sorry, no, that's not the wrong one, right one. It was the first time in 16 years there's been someone outside of Spain. That was it. I confused my
Oh,
stats
okay.
there.
Yeah, and I saw a reference to a second mention for Johnny. Hi, Johnny. Good game last night. Um, he tweeted. I thought it was quite nice. He was like, "I never imagined a City player would win a Ballon d'Or." It's nice, right? Someone from your own club wins it. I think it's something to be very proud of. I'm
Of
sure he
course,
didn't. I'm sure he didn't imagine it was going to be Rodri. Like if I'd have said to him a few years ago, City player win the Ballon d'Or, he'd be like, oh, it'd be
Haaland.
Aguero or
The
Haaland
oh,
now
a
or
few
De
years ago.
Bruyne. Um, Rodri, no, and I think it's worth remembering now something I said on this podcast. I think it's kind of nearly 4 years ago. They drew. I never forget this. They drew at Manchester United in a game in the behind closed door season. They drew 0-0, and I think it was in December. And I was really critical of Rodri. I remember specifically what I said. I was like, he needs Fernandinho to hold his hand, basically. And there was when Fernandinho was beginning to come to the end of his playing career at City, there was a lot of fear about how City were going to replace him. I don't think, since I said that about him, I don't think I've seen him have a bad game.
No, I can't say I have either, to be
Rarely.
honest.
I remember he played at Palace in April when he was about the time he was saying he was tired and he made an error on a goal and he gave a couple of unusual passes away. He's just so out of character because he's just become so good and so consistent. Completely made me eat my words about him. And as I said earlier, I become like unquestionable of the best
Yeah, I really
in
like
that
what
position.
I forgot what the last Clash of the Correspondents was when Johnny was on, like who it was with. But on that episode, I listened to it. Like the way he summarized it, it's there's no specific thing people will kind of notice about Rodri in a game. It's more the knock-on impact on everything else around him. Like I thought that was a really nice summary to kind of illustrate his importance and quality level. But it's just kind of wild when you think about that Champions League final, like them literally not playing him to comparing to his importance now. It's mad.
Yeah, they left him out against Chelsea. Yeah,
Because you remember there was a whole thing of like, oh
it's
my God, he's
insane.
he's like to think of that now is
Yeah, it's
insane, isn't it?
insane. But that was at the end of that season where I'd been obviously very critical of him earlier on. So I don't think he wasn't established to the extent obviously he is now. But yeah, that it was a shock. And even Johnny and other City fans would say Pep got his selection wrong that night, as sometimes he has done in some of the bigger games. How he deals with what net is next with these injuries is interesting to say the least. Because actually, if you look at the next few fixtures, sort of like Bournemouth, Brighton, Tottenham, then Liverpool,
There's a few banana
3 of the
skins in there,
4
but
away, they're all banana skins.
yep,
They all
agree.
are. Okay. So with that in mind, Clates, what's the treble Man City you've got on Wildcard?
Yeah, I'm okay. My wild card. So we obviously discussed we discussed it last week, didn't we? And I think coming into the Clayton and James show last week, I was probably 70% like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Game week 9. Then we had a really good conversation, and it really put my mind at ease. Then got to the Friday deadline, and I was kind of, I kind of want to do it. And then I sat on Pete's site and ran a few different drafts, and I really landed on game week 10. I thought for my team just suited me really nicely, despite what you were saying about not loving the 9 to 12 period, because I thought if I can get the balance right, I can adapt to the moving template. So I pulled the trigger as soon as the deadline went because I was confident I was going to do it, wanted to catch some price rises, and now I'm just like, oh,
Oh
and
no.
as I'm saying that, my like a Wally, I didn't save my draft on Pete's thing, so I'm just gonna have to open it up again on the WhatsApp I sent you, which I've got now. And yeah, I don't know, like so the draft I sent, which I'm sure Nico's gonna do his fancy thing where he pops it on the
He
screen.
will, yeah.
I've got
Read it
obviously
out for those on the audio.
sure. So this was the draft that I put together yesterday morning, Tuesday. So Kelleher and Flecken as the goalkeepers, Davis, Pedro Porro, Trent, Dallo, Konsa as the defenders. Rashford, Bumo, Palmer, Salah, Raul, Jimenez, Solanke, Cunha, and sorry, I missed out Eze there. So the bench at the minute for this week is Flecken, Eze, Dallo, Konsa. You obviously mentioned Eze, possible injury. So I've just not had the time to kind of rejig
Yeah, no,
things
that's
this
that's
morning.
fair enough, mate.
But my immediate thoughts on that is like Rashford's someone that I don't love, but with that draft, I couldn't quite get to Bruno without making a compromise I didn't like. So my immediate thoughts are, can I downgrade Eze to a Rodgers or something and maybe make Rashford into a Bruno? The Consa one, like in case you're wondering, again, yeah, let me plug you. So you've got a spreadsheet on Patreon, your planner, right? And on there was a sheet where you really nicely put all the fixture difficulty ratings for the teams from like game week 10, game week 11, game week 12 onwards. So when I was looking at my defense, I think it was game week. When is it you play City? Is it game week 12?
Yeah.
And my defense there looked a little bit ropey. So that
You've got
one was,
Palace at home, who they just lost to last night. Cool.
yeah, but in the league,
Admittedly, with a rotated team.
yeah, in the league, I think that will be all right. So that's literally why Conts is in there. But yeah, I'll be honest, I like the team, but I do look at it now in hindsight and think, did I actually need it? But I've clicked the button, so we've committed. Here we go. You said you had a few things you'd like to suggest or change. Hit me.
Well, what I tried to do, I'd obviously seen what you sent me yesterday, so I had an idea. But then I thought, you know what? Don't look at. I got home from the game last night, so it was kind of off my mind, and I thought, let me try and come up with a draft myself,
Okay.
not to try and change your bits, but if it was me now on Wildcard, like what would I do? And I think I lost some sleep thinking about it because I hate it.
Cheers, mate.
I hate it, but I'll tell you some differences I come up with. So, it's probably more easy to go with the bits that are the same in the
Okay.
first instance. So Trent stays. I've done mine, but I've left 1.5 in the bank here, by the way, at the
What
minute.
is that for a future move of someone? Like getting
Well, yeah,
Saka back
because
in or
I hate
something?
this team so much that I definitely want to make some moves afterwards,
Go
basically.
for it.
Trent and Dallo are the two that are the same that you've got. Midfield, yeah, Salah, Palmer, Bumo, definites and agree with. Up front, Cunha. Otherwise, I went with something completely different. So, goalkeepers, I went Fabianski and Verbruggen.
I did ask, so do you reckon Fabianski will keep his shirt? Yeah.
So, Verbruggen has got two difficult games, obviously, coming up, Liverpool and Manchester City. Fabianski's got Forest away and Everton at home. The thinking there would be, can we get away with Fabianski for the next two? Then Brighton come into a really good run of fixtures from then on. I'd have concern about the ones like Estupinan, Kadioglu, how much they're going to play. Dunk is obviously injured at the moment as
That's.
well.
Do you not have any concerns on them defensively as a result of those injuries and concerns?
That's why I think the goalkeeper was a good pick, actually.
But I mean, more the knock-on impact of them defensively and their potential.
Well, Dunk might be back by the time these fixtures swing back
True.
around for him in game week 12. And I just think, yeah, they're much improved from De Zerbi's openness, let's say. They're still open and offensive, but definitely a little bit better and stronger defensively. It's just a lot more compact when they lose the ball. They get back into position much quicker, as seen when they had a 4v1 opportunity against Wolves, but that was a bit of a weird one. So I like that because that's not a big spend on the goalkeepers as well. I
Yeah.
think, truthfully, I find it difficult to think if you're wildcarding now that you don't go Fabianski as the 4.0 because if he plays, you want it. Now, if I'd said to you now he's going to stay in the team long term, and we don't know that,
Then
well,
I'd
you'd be
keep
like,
him.
I've got to have him, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and for Bruggen as a cheap one where the fixtures swing from game week 12 gives a little bit of Brighton coverage there.
This was where I wanted Keller, just like Liverpool defensively are pretty good, right? And I was like, oh, can I just roll with it and see if I can get away with it as long as I can? And then Flecken's there for when Allison comes back in. But then that feels like penciling in a transfer on a keeper already.
Yeah, but then so like yeah, that's it. So the thing is, think about it like this: is think about the outcome. When Alisson's back, if Fabianski's still in goal for West Ham at that point, what are you doing? I'm quite tempted to go there, I think.
True.
And Flecken's fixtures get tougher from sort of game week 14. So in the immediate, I think that's fine. Looking a little bit further ahead. So actually, you've got Kelleher in to cover Allison at the point where Flecken's fixtures are okay. And
Yeah.
then you'll get Flecken's fixtures get tougher and Kelleher loses his
He'll be
place
out of
like
the
at the
team.
same time. So there's an easy pick up some money for you.
Yep.
I wouldn't go Kelleher. I don't think. Yeah, it's like waiting to be a problem for you, I think. Uh Trent, yeah, cool. You can make debates about whether he's worth the money at the moment, but it's also somewhere you can find money if you need it by obviously downgrading him. I think the fixtures right in front of you feel like you want Liverpool coverage. It's probably more a debate of whether you just go Trent or go Konaté and save the money.
I'd just prefer to have Trent there than Canate
Yeah,
personally. Yeah.
what I looked at here, I'd have been like leaving 3 odd million in the bank, I think, just for future moves. Dallo is there's the prospect of what it could be under Ruben Amorim in terms of a wing back, highly likely to be a offensive wing back, we would imagine. Although there is speculation that he might have to work a notice period at
Okay.
Sporting Lisbon, which would be like 30 days. So we might not see him till December. So that's probably going to take you into sort of like game week 14, by which point you've missed them United games against Leicester, Ipswich, Everton.
Think he'll
So
still play under Rude?
he'll play. I don't know if there's much doubt about that, particularly with obviously Luke Shaw. There's obviously had another setback as well. There's not much doubt that he'd play, I don't think. But it might not be what, oh my God, wing back, wing back. It might not be that in the immediate. Other ones I went for defensively, I left Gabriel in.
Okay.
Now, there's the influence on that in terms of me, if I was wildcarding, like, am I taking him out? Okay, I can set up to give myself good cover. This is the player that I would definitely want to go back to, particularly bearing in mind what I've done with the keepers here. I don't want to be in a position where, oh, suddenly you're all back fours back together, your fixtures get good from game week 12, and I have nothing of it. So I decided to leave Gabriel in. Ray and 8 Nori, I'm surprised you haven't got.
Yeah, it was just one of them when I was looking at the rotations between like Davis, Porro, Dallo, Conte, it just seemed to work quite nicely. But yeah, I'm very open to Nori. It's
I
just
mean, I'd pick him over Davis.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, I don't know why I'm acting so shocked. Like he's just more fun as well when he's
No, I think Davis is quite a fun pick. And listen, the Wolves fixtures, the times now, if you want to invest in Wolves,
yeah,
right? It's
that's
this
why I
week
was
or next week. I think if you're in wildcard now, you do want to invest in them. I think majority of people wildcard now would stick him in,
okay.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I did look at him,
Um,
but
and
I'm
it's
just not sure
one,
about Wolves defensively.
no, I get that, but the fixtures are good enough for a long enough period that you don't specifically need to look at the rotation too much. I'd say when I did look at with him, if people are interested, actually, it's Joachim Anderson at Fulham.
Yeah, I was considering him because yeah, I think Fulham on your FDR thing were quite high as well, like which is why I've got Jimenez in there.
Well, it's more the point actually just thinking ahead. And I was thinking of, and I've not done this, not having a 4.0. I'm thinking actually, let's have a look at what happens when Wolves fixtures turn shit again. And it turns really good for Fulham. So I was looking at that almost longer term, if like, right, rather than being in a problem of having to necessarily move 8 Nori, maybe Joachim Anderson at 4.3 would look good longer term. That's not who I went with as the fifth defender. I went with Levi Colwell of Chelsea.
Yeah, he was another one I was looking at. It's just I've got no money in the bank in this draft, and that would have been the point one between like Conser and Colwell, I think. But what's eight Nori? Is he 4.5?
You want a spoiler? He was
Oh, has he gone down? Is he four?
when I bought him on Monday.
What's he now? He's gone up.
He's 4.6.
Oh,
It
there
went
was
up
me
Monday night.
activating it on. This is the thing. I
Just
activated it
telling
on.
everyone the transfer made this week. I bought Ryan Ain't Norrie for
Nice.
Nedekovic, for those who are wondering.
Yeah, I activated the wildcard to catch price rises, and I missed a couple already.
Midfield, well done. Midfield. Honestly, we love you, mate. You couldn't be more Suge if you tried.
I know. Cut
Honestly,
from
we
the
love
same
you.
cloth. Even last night on the way back, I was like, "Oh, I need to remember, need to remember." Then I fell asleep in the car, and
You
I was like,
sure you're
"Fuck,
not family? Are you not
we
related? Are you
probably are."
sure?
Uncle Sedge.
Salah Palmer Bumo is, yeah, I think that's fairly straightforward. There is a case with Palmer to maybe punt something else and then come back to it in game week 12, but I think just stick him in, particularly Saka's got the two away games as well. I think that's where the preference would be. I left Rogers in.
Yep, understand that.
I've got the value there on him. The one I'm keen on is obviously a player I bought a couple of weeks ago, Scarnacho.
Yeah. I, what do you think his minutes will be like then? You're fairly certain and confident in him, aren't you?
Yeah. And actually, my concern is what happens to him when Amorim actually arrives. Now, if Amorim's going to be longer than we expect, then I'm pretty high on Garnacho for those three really good fixtures after the Chelsea game.
Yeah, I can't argue it to be honest.
I
I
might
just
even be
went.
put I might even be putting the armband on him in 11.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And 13 would maybe be a possibility for me as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I did want Man United offensive coverage, and that's why I landed on Rashford. But yeah, I went Rashford because I thought maybe he's more secure than Garnacho, but maybe I'm overthinking that. Like, I couldn't
I
quite
would pick
strike.
Garnacho over Rashford.
Yeah, why?
Better player.
I still have this.
Yeah.
Rashford will go
Yeah,
on a
I get
streak,
it. I
and
get it. Just watch.
yeah, that's the thing. I've not actually watched him much, which is possibly my mistake.
Now he's back on the left. That's potentially golden, I think. So yeah, Garnacho's the one I'd want to pump most. If you do, I mean, how much more expensive is Rashford than Garnacho? A million? What's
I can't
Rashford?
remember. Rashford was seven something.
Yeah, I mean Garnacho's 6'2". So once you've done that and you've gone Fabianski as one of the keepers, you've suddenly found an extra 1.5 million here, mate,
Yeah, true.
for whatever you want.
Sorry, so Rashford's 6.9 and
Oh,
Garnacho
is he?
6.2. So yeah, it's
Okay.
even less in it than I thought.
0.7. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't pick Rashford over Garnacho. Like you can if you want to punt that because that's what you feel. Go for it, mate. But I wouldn't.
Okay,
Up front,
noted.
Cunha, as long as his knees are okay, because he also Wolves had an open training session on Monday or Tuesday, and it was reported that he walked away from it and then sat down on the dugout with ice on a
Eyes back
knee
on
or
knees.
knees.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm sure he'll be fine, I would guess. But as long as he's given the deal clear, I think Cunha on Wildcard is going it almost his first pick
Yeah,
or
he was
was.
one of the first. To be honest, the strikers I was sport for choice. Like obviously Visser's probably the noticeable one that I've not got in there, and Solanke's one. Like again, I want to. We spoke about it last week, and again said I didn't watch the game last night, but from the stuff I've heard, and the reason I've got him in there is I still think with your fixtures, like he's not going to continue not doing anything, and at his price, I like that I've given myself the option there to maybe restructure things. I think if I went Jimenez, Visser, Cunha, I could really lock myself off from potentially moving.
Say fixtures. Do you mean fixture?
No, well, you got Villa at home, which I think is a home fixture fine. Ipswich at home. I know City away is tough, but like Fulham home, Bournemouth away, I don't think they're. I think they're fine.
Yeah, it'd be coming out for me.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
That concerning.
He's doing a brilliant job for the
As a
team. And
footballer,
he
yeah.
played well
Just
again last night. You know,
talking
people just
FPL,
want to
yeah.
look at it from a fantasy lens. Fine. Think he's shit. It's fine. He's doing a great job for the team.
Yeah, no, this is
And
just a conversation about FPL for this, isn't it?
there's a difference between me sitting here and saying I might captain him in game week 11 because he's sitting there in my team. I wouldn't go and buy
Versus,
him at the moment.
I just think, what do you? Because this is the thing. Like, I don't
It's
love him as.
inevitable transfer.
Is it? Because I don't
Yeah.
love him as an asset, but again, it's a structure thing for me at this point. And I just think with those fixtures, he can be like a nice placeholder to potentially move on if and when needed with a little restructure.
I tell you the other forwards I went for.
Go for it.
Jackson probably won't surprise you. You know, I'm pretty high on him. I've put Hoyland in.
Yeah, I was toying with him. I was really
It's the
toying with him.
same. Just get through this week, and then after there's the three fixtures to. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, yeah, he was in and out for me. Okay.
The reason I went that way is when I looked at things like, and these are all good options, right? Raul Jimenez, Visser, Chris Wood, all really good options. Like if anybody was wildcarding now or even buying those players, absolutely fine. All of them genuinely really good options. But I am seeing teams with wildcards that are things like Cunha, Wood, understandably at the moment, and say Jimenez. And as I discussed on Monday's pod with Serge, it's like I'm really scared the amount of forwards people are cutting themselves off here. Because once you hit 12, it's like Isak looks good, Jackson looks good, Watkins looks good. Like shit, Havertz looks good. All of them suddenly back into play.
And that
Whereas
was my thinking behind
whereas they
Solanke,
don't
but
appeal right now. And the problem I had is like I've got to say here, Palmer, Garnacho, Hoyland, Jackson, all in the lineup this week with them two playing each other. Right, he doesn't look good, but it will do moving forward in a few weeks. And the problem was, if I looked at things like you go, yeah, well, why don't you go Wood for a couple of weeks and then go Jackson, for example, or do it a different way around, come back for Hoyland next week. Could have done all those things. But every time you looked at it and went cheaper, the temptation then was there to go, I'm going to go Saka rather than Garnacho.
yeah.
Now, obviously, Saka rather than Garnacho, thumbs up. No one's
Yeah, it's not as
disagreeing.
binary as that, is it?
But you're then cutting yourself off of all them forwards again because when you hit game week 12, you ain't selling Salah, you ain't selling Palmer, you ain't selling Saka, you ain't selling Bumo. That's a midfield's like a lock.
Yeah.
And you are stuck with the forwards at that price bracket. And as said, all those at kind of wood price and lower, they're all really good, but it will flip again. The template will flip again back to, oh, I need Isak or I need Jackson, I need Watkins. And I think people need to find at least kind of one where they're in reach of that.
Yeah, this is the thing. I definitely take your point. Like this isn't an ideal week to wild card. I just think even like I've just got my points up from last week. Like it was flag central in my team. And I think it was just getting to a point where I would be shooting myself in the foot and getting more red arrows if I held on and just tried to firefight it. So I think this was just like, let me just get the open heart surgery out. Let me hit the wild card. And yeah, sure, it's probably not the optimal time to go in, but I think if I can get the balance right and navigate a shift in the template with free transfers, I should be okay. But yeah, you've given me a good bit of food for thought there with a few players.
That team there
My one or your one?
is mine that I've put together. I've possibly got nine of that are going to start for me this week. So I'd be nowhere near the thing. But actually, when I look at my team with, say, Watkins and Solanke in it, it still looks a bit more powerful. And I think I prefer what I've got
Yeah.
than looking at this personally. But you've done it, mate. So pick the
But that
players you want and crack
and
on,
that's
mate.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like comparing it to what I had, I prefer what I've now drafted because like what I had, it was on its last legs. So yeah,
This week it looks ugly because of many of the top teams are obviously playing each other. So there's inevitability there of something you can't escape. How much money did you say you left in the bank in that
there was
draft?
nothing. There was nothing in that draft.
Yeah, so what you got to big things. Even if, say, like we said about Fabianski, right, and then maybe Garnacho to Rashford. Even if you didn't spend that money, that then allows you to get from Solanke to, if you want to go with Dom for the two home games, to then get to Jackson, Isak, or Watkins in 12. Whereas at the moment, if you've got nothing there, you've cut yourself off. Unless, listen, you can, of course, make the two free transfers and drop Porro down, for example. I think at this stage, I'd cut him off
Really?
reluctantly. Yeah.
Go on, tell me more. Why?
Just not justifying it. You see Mickey getting injured last night as well. That don't help.
Well, he's not someone I think you pick for the clean sheets, is he, Pedro Porro? Is he still getting into the right areas, or is that?
Yeah, and I said he was back on like the corners on Sunday against Crystal
Oh,
Palace and stuff. I love him as a player. But I think, again, thinking about the outcome, if the next two go bad, those are inevitably your transfers in 12. It's Porro out and Solanke out. And I've got both of them in my team. But guess what? I'm looking at game with 12 and thinking, I'm selling Porro, I'm selling Solanke. It's
yeah. But
probably
that's the
what's
thing where
in
I'm
mind
like,
at the
I
moment.
can possibly navigate that with the transfers, right? Again, it was just it got to a point where I think there was one, two, three problems too many for me to just navigate with transfers that I had to just hit the wild card.
Any temptation to stick Haaland in?
No, no, not for me personally. And to be honest, I don't know, yeah, if this is a narrative thing, but like you said earlier with the injuries, I was already going to get rid of him because I wanted to get Salah. I just don't love the fixtures for City coming up. He absolutely capable of scoring in all of them. Am I going to captain him in any of them coming up? I'm not sure. Maybe Bournemouth if I was to own, but no,
I'd
he's
still
not going.
captain him this weekend
Yeah,
if I owned
again,
him.
yeah, can understand that, but over the course coming up, not that bothered. That'll
Yeah,
definitely come
the
back to bite me.
the four fixtures coupled with City's injuries is going to give a lot of people the motivation, I think, to do it. And I think for those who own, I've said it so many times, like he's so difficult to sell. Like I get it. If you're not feeling that push now to do it, you're going to struggle to do it at other points when City are suddenly getting their best players back fit, and the closer you get towards their next good kind of fixture swing. I think there's every chance I'll get beat on Saturday. And
I hope you're right, mate.
I thought that a couple of weeks ago anyway. So now
Yeah,
even
you
more,
did
I
say
think
that
it.
actually. Yeah, I obviously hope you are correct.
I don't suppose it makes much difference to me, so I don't suppose I'm fighting for the title. But one team finally ended their title hoodoo last season, going from Bayer Leverkusen to finally Bayer Leverkusen. The floor is yours, Clates.
You you took that away from my little script. I had
Oh,
you heard
sorry,
about
mate.
that the Neverkusen thing? Because
Well, of
that was
course, yeah.
yeah. So
The,
I
yeah, the Leverkusen became a big thing after the 01-02 season.
yeah. So for context, for people that may not know, like me, who didn't know until I researched this, they were kind of so we're talking about Bayer Leverkusen, obviously, and yeah, they were kind of known as a bit of a nearly team, and like you said, in that 01-02 season,
Like
they re
worse than the Tottenham,
well, is it
basically.
they're an equivalent of Spursy?
No, worse because at least Tottenham had like the historical trophies. Leverkusen didn't even have that, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, in that season you mentioned they reached the finals of the Champions League and the DFB Pokal, as well as finishing the Bundesliga runners-up. And that Champions League final was obviously the kind of famous Zidane volley, right? One of the
Yep.
greatest ever. But yeah, a bit of history around Bayer Leverkusen. This was one where, like, whenever I'm doing my research, it's kind of late at night, I'll start reading, and I just started nerding out on this one because I think they're a team that is very fixed in my brain in modern football, but as about the history. I was like, oh, this is quite cool. So they were founded in 1904 and it was by employees of the Bayer Pharmaceutical Company. And they were originally set up as a multi-sport club. It was then in 1907 that they actually established a department that was specifically for football. It took them many years to then get into the Bundesliga, which was 1979. But their first major success came in 1988. Well, say major European success was 1988 when they won the what was then the UEFA Cup, now obviously the Europa League. Do you know what that game was like? That tie,
I,
should I say?
I can tell you that I remember watching highlights of that on a Eurostar
Really?
whilst heading to the game
Wow.
at the Bio Arena back in 2000 because we played them. This is 2016. Yeah, lost the first leg away 3-0 and won the second leg 3-0 at home and won a
Yeah.
penalties.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, that was their first major
What's that
yeah,
against in the final? I can't
Espanyol.
recall. Espanyol, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, in terms of them as a club as well, they're slightly different to the rest of Germany in terms of like their cultures. Obviously, in Germany, there's a big culture, and I'd say it's quite normal for them to be community-run, fan-led clubs. But obviously, with what I've just said, where they were a bit more of a corporate kind of background and stemmed from that pharmaceutical one, they were viewed slightly different in Germany, but I think they gained a lot of respect from people because of their emphasis on their youth academy. So you've had players like obviously Tony Cruz come from there. I can't remember if Michael Ballack actually came through their academy, but he obviously was a big part
A
of
big
their
part of the Champions League final team in
of
02, yeah.
course, yeah. And then more recently, like I know people have divided opinions about him now, but Kai Havertz, when he was playing at Leverkusen, I think was renowned as one of the biggest talents in Europe. You got Florian Wirtz there. And yeah, going back to the kind of Neverkusen thing, that 2000 onwards period, they had some unbelievable players. Like this is the bit where growing up, I remember them as a staple in European football. Like players like Zé Roberto, Lucio, or we obviously touched on Ballack.
Big Brazilian influence. Yeah.
Yeah, big time. And yeah, they obviously had a long period competing with Bayern Munich and then Dortmund coming in there. And then, like you said at the start, they, yeah, last year obviously went on an incredible run. They won the domestic double undefeated, and then obviously sadly lost the Europa League final to Atalanta 3-0. But unbelievable season. Alonso, when he came in, again, I didn't realize this until I was kind of reading about it. When he came in, they were near the relegation zone. I think they were in the relegation zone.
Yeah.
And obviously, it was his first official managerial role. Like, he guided them to safety, finished sixth place that season, and then in last season just went on and done something absolutely extraordinary. So,
I broke the record for the longest competitive streak of games without losing.
yeah,
A record that had stood. So this includes European fixtures, domestic cup games, 51 games, I think it was.
52.
52 when they lost to Atalanta. That record had stood from Benfica in the 1960s.
Absolutely absurd. And they just had this inevitability about them, didn't they? There were a few like last minute equalizers or
Oh,
winners in there.
so many, man.
So many, weren't there? Yeah, they yeah, really cool team. And like I said, I don't know if it's just them being slightly different to the constant inevitability of Bayern Munich just winning the league, but yeah, they're a team that I think every neutral gets quite excited by.
Yeah, I mean, the set up differently to many now. You and I have had so many conversations about the wing backs, Grimaldo and Frimpong, particularly on our UCL fantasy podcast. Up front, Victor Boniface is doing really well in front of goal. Florian Wirtz is probably going to get a big move next summer, I should imagine. We've still got some really good players at centre back in Lux Piero Hincapié and Edmund Tapsoba as well. Jack has done really well
It's done
since he's gone
fantastic.
there
Yep.
in midfield with Andrick, his midfield partner, isn't it? They've done really well. They've been better than the sum of the parts, I think it's fair to say, which is a big influence of the manager. I mean, 51, 52 games without losing is something.
Absurd.
It would be absurd if, like, with respect to a Madrid or a Barcelona did it, or Bayern Munich did it. Bayern Leverkusen,
Yeah.
Bayern Leverkusen. Bayern Leverkusen, you have to remember when they were in that Champions League final in '02, had never even won the domestic title. Ever had never won a Bundesliga. They were the first team to get to a Champions League final who had never won a domestic title. And in that season, in terms of near miss, I mean, God knows what your summer holidays would have been like, losing the German Cup final to Schalke, losing the Champions League final to Real Madrid, which admittedly would have been expected. But they were 5 points clear in the Bundesliga with 3 games to go.
Were they five clear? I didn't realize that.
I'm pretty sure Dortmund caught them.
Wow.
They lost 2 of their last 3 games. And a few years earlier, they played, I think it's Unterhaching. They only needed don't question me on the pronunciation.
No,
I see your lip wobble there, mate.
no, that was
They,
I was impressed by that. That was
yeah,
actually all
cheers. I don't know if it's right or not, but it sounded good. That's a bit of German I learned from school there. They only needed a draw on the final day to win the league, and they lost.
right. Yeah.
And Bayern Munich caught them. And so that's after '02, it became the Leverkusen. You'll never win anything, and it's a tag that I guess they kind of embraced themselves over the last year or so with what they achieved, because they did obviously win the German Cup last year. It should have been the treble. Well, Atalanta were great on in the final in Dublin against them.
What was the score? It was like Lookman's got
3
a hat
0.
trick. Was it
Lookman got a
3
hat
0?
trick. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They,
Yeah.
they they well beat them. Gasparini's team was outstanding on the day. Just one too many for them. And I guess all those escapes that we said, like, I remember watching them against Carabao. They were going out.
That was another
Um,
last minute one, wasn't it?
it's got 2 in injury time.
Yeah, yeah.
They were going
That
out.
was mad. Forgot about that.
Um, yeah, they scored twice in injury time to go for. I think that was in the last 16 of the Europa League. Obviously, not Sudge's team out. We said, as I said, we played them in 16, 17. We also played them away in the UEFA Cup in 2006, and we just bought Dimitar Berbatov from them.
Yeah.
He wasn't a bad
What a
player.
player.
Scored the only goal. Whenever I think of Leverkusen, the first thing that comes to mind is Hugo Lloris.
Why?
Always. Because that game I went to finished 0-0, and Lloris made this
Oh,
remarkable
unbelievable.
save that people might remember from, I think was it from Chicharito, I think.
Can't remember, to be
Was
honest,
he
mate.
up front for Leverkusen? I
He
can't
definitely
remember.
played for them. Can't remember
He
if it was
made
that
this
period.
save that was like under his body, and he stopped it with his hand on the line, but then landed on top of it and had to roll with the ball across his body and then scoop it up and not cross the line at the same time. It was one of them. It was like a magic trick. I saw the ball hit the net, I'm sure, in front of my eyes, and then he's running away with the ball in his hands. And I was
Ah,
at the other end of the ground. We couldn't explain it. It
wow.
wasn't until we got into a bar in Cologne afterwards, saw the replay. We're like, how has he done that?
What did you Oh, sorry, go on.
No, no.
What did you think of the ground? Because yeah, again, I didn't really know
Yeah,
much about it, but
nice, nice,
it's
cute ground. I mean,
30,000, isn't it?
yeah, that's all it is. And it's had a few renovations, so it kind of got rebuilt in the late 90s before they had this run. And it's worth saying in '02, remember, to get to that Champions League final, they beat Liverpool and Manchester United en route. United fans say they didn't beat us. It's 1-1 and 2-2. Yeah, but away goals used to be a thing back then. And then they wanted to renovate it again so it could get games for the 2006 World Cup, but they deemed it wasn't worthwhile. Then they did an expansion again afterwards where they kind of wrapped an extra tier around three sides, because one side is built basically just with like corporate boxes. It's like a sexy version of Crystal Palace's Sainsbury's end. Um, make of that what you want. And I can promise you the Bay Arena is a lot more sexy than Selhurst Park as well. But nice stadium when you're outside. The roof's quite impressive because it's attached, but it's not attached. So they have this kind of small, they're quite small support beams that come away from the stand. So there's a gap, so you can see, so like air would be able to go in. So it gives the impression that the roof is floating above the
Oh, that's
stadium
quite
a
cool.
bit.
Yeah,
It looks quite cute, quite cool. Yeah, nice venue. I mean, I'd love going to Germany.
me too.
Good stadium. They're not one of the best supported teams. You know, if you look at their average attendance from last season, they'll rank 11th in the Bundesliga. I mean, even clubs like Frankfurt, Mönchengladbach, perhaps a few more real traditional players in Germany, Stuttgart, another one have got
I
far bigger
think
support.
I think that stems from, what I was saying about the kind of fan ownership model in Germany versus the history of Bayer Leverkusen, where they were set up from more of a corporate kind of background. That's
They're a
my
family
assumption
club.
anyway.
They're a family club. Another one of their nicknames is Die Werkself, which stop laughing, honestly. It translates to the factory 11. And another interesting thing I found about them is what's interesting is, of course, they are Bayer Leverkusen and have always been Bayer Leverkusen, not just Leverkusen. So this pharmaceutical company essentially founded them. They are allowed to keep the name Bayer in UEFA. You never see them as Leverkusen. They are Bayer Leverkusen. Yet the Red Bulls are not allowed.
I didn't know that. So what
Yeah.
in Europe they're just called Leipzig and Salzburg.
So they'll be like RB Leipzig. Yeah. They're not allowed to use a Red Bull name. So
Never put two and two together on that.
they'll go RB Leipzig. Yeah. And I think Salzburg just goes Salzburg, I think. So, but Bayer Leverkusen are allowed to use it. And the part of the reason for that is obviously it's not been like a more recent takeover. This company founded the football clubs is what it's always been.
Yeah,
So therefore it's okay, even though they are, I mean, company, their assets are like over 100 billion,
astronomical.
that company. So if you ever see the buyer badge people are familiar with the vertical and the not
Horizontal.
horizontal. Yeah, thanks, mate. Cheers. I really should go back to school, honestly, and have another coffee. That's what it's from. The buyer is the pharmaceutical company. Yeah. I think they'll do well in the Champions League this year. They're 5 points behind in the Bundesliga. Once you're probably behind that with Bayern Munich, and they're behind Leipzig as well by the same distance at the moment. Yeah, they probably won't win the league this year. I imagine after what they achieved last year, there will be a desperation to do well in European competition. If anyone plays them, they're going to be in for a game. And we're talking about them now because they do go to Anfield next week.
Can't wait to watch that. Well, assuming it's not on the same night as Arsenal. I've not actually checked.
Uh, well, you'll be in Milan anyway, won't you?
Yeah, but if it's on the Tuesday and I'm in Milan, I'll find a bar to watch that.
Which, spoiler now, means the Clayton and James show is on Friday next week, by the way,
Woohoo!
kids, because Clayton's going to Italy for 3 days next week on some jaunt and some no jeopardy competition.
Not sour at all. Are we?
Well, I'm also in a no jeopardy competition, just I'm on a Thursday night, mate. And no, I'm not going to Turkey next
I'm
week.
enjoying the new format, I'll be honest, but we can talk about that another time.
Yeah, let's give it a chance. Before we finish on this day, a bit of a haunting derby experience from 2010. I could have picked a haunting derby experience for my team in 2009, but decided to overlook that, Clayton, because I don't like you that much. On October the 31st, 2010, Sunderland went to St James's Park and got absolutely annihilated by 5 goals to 1.
Oof. Was
The
this
biggest derby victory in 50 years in the Northeast.
wow. What competition was this in?
Oh, Premier League.
Oh, it was Premier League.
Premier League, yeah. Newcastle had been back in the league. Obviously, they went down in 2008. Um, Come back up, stayed up under Chris Hughton. He was under a lot of pressure going into this game. And actually, Sunderland at the time were building an half decent team, right? Asamoah Gyan up front, Darren Bent, young Jordan Henderson.
Was Sessegnon in that team? Or was that slightly too,
No,
was that before that?
later, I believe. Yeah, I think so. You're testing me now. But those two up front, I think it's the same season people might remember in a similar time. They went to Stamford Bridge and won 3-0 really impressively. Do you remember Zenden doing a stupid dance in the corner with Jan? You must remember.
I can't say I
Do
do
you not
to that. There's
remember?
no
Asamoah Gyan was doing his dance in the corner, and Zenden runs up next to him and just looks at him, tries to copy him, and
no charisma, I'm guessing.
yeah, awkward dad moment,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah, yeah, very much so. Uh, I'll tell you the teams that played. So Newcastle was Krul, Simpson, without the pussy, Williamson, Colaccini, Enrique, Barton Tiote, Nolan Gutierrez, Carroll, and Amiobi. Sunderland, Simon Mignolet in goal, and Nedum Manua, Titus Bramble, Matt Turner, Phil Barsley, El Mohammadi. Jan came on as a substitute, Cattermole, Henderson, Steed Malbronk. And up front, starting with Darren Bent, was Danny Welbeck.
Oh,
And they'd
wow.
also brought on Kieran Richardson as a substitute. Had played a few times, obviously, for England as well.
Proper Barclays teams, those.
I mean, to be honest, case to say that Sunderland were stronger than Newcastle at this point, but they got smacked. And it was not a good experience for Steve Bruce. Obviously, Geordie, he would later go on and manage Newcastle. He openly admitted after the game that they got destroyed and got what they deserved, and a few of their players weren't particularly. Interesting. We see the highlights. Sunderland had a few chances as well. Newcastle went in front for a really awkward looking overhead kick by Kevin Nolan. I say awkward, he's brilliant, but it's awkward because he does near enough lay down.
I think
It's
I
not like,
remember this. It was really low, wasn't it?
yeah.
And it just kind of looped in then.
And it looks awkward. It's like the worst overhead kick you've ever seen. But actually, when you think about it logically, it's the only way you can score.
Yeah, I can't remember it crystal clear, but I've got a vague memory of that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a corner comes to the back post and gets knocked down. And he obviously wants to turn and shoot, but he wants to overhead hook it and overhead kick it because
That's it.
keeper's
He
coming,
hooks
another
it. Yeah.
defender's coming. Now, obviously, if he couldn't bicycle kick it because the ball was too low, so he ended up almost laying on the floor and just kicking it backwards past him, and it flew into the roof of the net. And it looks like a really awkward one. It looks like a typical Englishman's bicycle kick rather than a continental player, but it was the only way he could score. And he got a second afterwards after Andy Carroll had tried some obscene scissor kick from the edge of the box, which bounced down into Nolan's path to make it 2-0. And he got a penalty just before half time as well, which Sammy Amubi extremely well converted, absolutely buried it into the side netting.
Did you say
3-0 up at half
Sammy,
time.
not Shola?
Shola, did I say Sammy?
I think so.
He had a
Yeah, no,
brother
because
called Sammy.
yeah, that's why I was just checking which one it was.
I had a Newcastle mate, and that's what the way he just used to say Shola Amiobi, it's just never left me. Shola and Sammy Amiobi in the book, man. It's the second half. Titus Bramble, yet formerly of Newcastle, playing for Sunderland, gets sent off by Phil Dowd for wiping the floor out of Carroll. It's one of them. Carroll's about to go past him. It's kind of like last man, but it is towards the edge of the box. Arsenal fans don't get upset. This one was actually a
Oh,
red card.
Jesus, here we go.
Yeah, yeah, you know it, mate. Stay off Twitter, honestly. Yeah, you won yesterday. Have some happy stuff. Don't talk about referees.
I haven't said anything. You brought it up.
Yeah, but your lot don't shut up, do they? So
Bloody hell.
Carroll's beat Bramble. Bramble fouls him. It's kind of your typical little bit more than a yellow, not a red, but it is overzealous, shall we say. He does wipe him out. You see Dowd's like yellow card, yellow card, yellow card. And as he's getting closer and closer, it's like, no, this is going to be red, actually. The combination of it being overly aggressive and being in a really dangerous position, he's gone, yeah, red card. They get a fourth where Carroll hits the bar and Amiobi slams in the rebound. And it reminded me of two goals that Newcastle scored against Manchester United when they famously beat United 5-0. It reminded me, Les Ferdinand scored the third, I think, that day, which was from a brilliant sheer across. This was the same. It was across from the right-hand side. and Ferdinand had got up and he powered this header back across Peter Schmeichel and it hit the bar, bounced down, hit the post, came back up, like hit the roof of the net. And Carroll was like that the way he hit the back post, but he smashed against the bar and obviously rebounded. And it also reminded me of another goal where Shearer scored after Peter Beardsley had an effort save, where Shearer scored the rebound the same game. And this was the same. Amiobi just smashed it in. So echoes of another Newcastle victory in that game. And he got a fifth. Carroll again assisting for Kevin Nolan to complete his header. Near post flick on Carroll, Nolan, sorry, in the 6 yard box. Can't miss with a header. Darren Bent would get a very late consolation for 10-man Sunderland, who were humbled, but they are doing very well in the
They are.
championship at the moment. They're top, doing
It'll be
well.
great to see them back up.
They're only behind Leeds in the betting. They're a club that's had some really difficult times over the last few years. It's finally getting itself on the track. That is a big football club
Huge.
that has every right to feel it should be part of the Premier League. I wish them well. So that was a glorious day for Newcastle on Halloween in 2010.
Very nicely done.
As I said, Clayton and James Show. We'll be back next Friday. Euro Focus is going to be Noah's Ark after they've played Chelsea. You'll be able to tell us all about your trip to Internazionale. Shout out to Jamie Carragher. Ask James tomorrow for you, 2 p.m. UK time, obviously deadline stream, Saturday morning, possibly with Gabriel / other Arsenal player leaks of whether they're starting or not starting. Clayton, anything else?
No, all good. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
I wish you the very best of luck with your wild card. Cue music, please, man.